show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Dixie, oh, what a sweet refrain, with trumpets wailing bright as the morning train, where the river hums a tune and the willows sway again.
Oh, the stars, they twinkle like a slide trombone, and the saxophones croon of a land we call home.
Let us cross, oh, cross that shining stream, where the trees whisper soft in a dream. Rest in the shade where the good Lord decrees to live and die in Dixie. Oh, sweet memories.
The magnolias bloom with a sway so grand, like the swing of the bass in the Dixieland band, and the sun paints gold on the fields we've manned.
Oh, the clarinet sighs in a velvet breeze, and the rhythm flows like the roots of the trees. Let us cross, oh, cross that shining stream, where the trees whisper soft in a dream.
And with that soft, sweet dream and the soft voice of, no, that's not Frank Sinatra. That is Suno.com. $10 a month, get you 10,000 songs a month. And I love it. I love it. With me tonight is Chris Edwards, also known as James C. Edwards, the man behind not one, not two, not three, but 4 books about William Quantrill. We're going to be talking about 2 things tonight. We're going to talk about this book, which is volume number 3, and we're going to touch base on volume number 1 if there's time. I hope to be time because, like I said in my broadcast earlier, I found a really neat video that backs up everything this man has written, and we're going to let him introduce himself, give him some background, and then I have a format I'm hoping to follow without too many problems. If you have any questions, any comments, please get them out here and we will address them as we see them. And we'll start off the bat. We have Zach Rayla. Hey, Zach. Zach, so you know, folks, was a client of mine doing Ancestry, and he is a follower of my broadcast. So, Chris, introduce yourself, do a little bit of background, and then we'll get started.
Okay, well, my parents really hurt me with the James C. Edwards. I go by middle name, obviously, but anyway, it's all the same person. So what happened? You know, I'm getting the feedback on that.
Yeah, I'm hearing something too. I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
Let me just see something here, and it shouldn't be because no audio. Let me just check something. Go ahead and talk.
Okay. Yeah, that's just me now. Okay. So in 1978, I started reading a book about William Settle called Jesse James was his name. And I was obviously introduced to Frank and Jesse. And I learned during that book that they were gorillas with William Clark Quantrill. Well, I was probably 24, 25 back in 1978. And I had no idea that it was even a Civil War story. But anyway, I read Settle's book, then that led me to William Conley's book, which is called Quantrill and the Border War. And it's not a very favorable book about William Quantrill. So I did believe everything that he wrote for like 10 years because I was taught you believe everything that you read. But at some point, I just kind of said, this just really doesn't add up very well. So in 1978, I just casually started to do research on the Lawrence raid, to see if it's really the way that he describes it. So I guess fast forward, I in 2004, I think I was 51 or something like that. Anyway, I went back to school. I was accepted into graduate school at Mizzou, and I earned my master's in history. And one of the books that I was required to read is a book about historiography, which is the history of how history has been written. And that book really taught me not to believe anything I ever read ever again. Because at that point, you got to go back to the author and you got to find out what his station is in life and what his bias is. And if any historian tells you that they're not biased, they're lying. Because if they're going to write about something, they've got something that they want to tell you. And so they're very biased. So anyway, taking that, the historiography class taught me that if you really want to know what the truth is, you need to go back to the primary sources. So I did. And I spent a lot of years and a lot of time. I went back to the Kansas State Historical Society. I went to the primary sources. And let me tell you up front, this is very ironic, but probably 75% of the information that's in the book actually comes from the William Conley collection. Okay, so William Conley, let me just go back on him. He was born in Kentucky. His father was a Union soldier during the war. I think it was a 45th Mounted Infantry, Kentucky. And he did have experience fighting guerrillas in Kentucky during the war. Now, whether or not he actually fought Quantrill, I really don't know about that. But Conley was very, very biased. And after John N. Edwards, no relationship, after his book came out, Noted Guerrillas, he declared war on Missouri guerrillas and said he was going to straighten it out. And he got all this information, a lot of it secondhand. He did some pretty good research on his own, but a lot of it secondhand. And he decided that he was going to ruin this guy one way or the other. So anyway, after I graduated with my graduate degree, I did go back to the Kansas State Historical Society. I did go to the Conley Collection, Box 13, and I spent many, many hours and many, many days there. I also spent a lot of time in Spencer Library in Lawrence and the Douglas County, Kansas Museum in Lawrence. And I found most of this information right there. And it just conflicts with the popular narrative. So I contend that Conley had this information in his collection, but he either just cherry picked or he ignored it. But William Conley is not the only, okay, I forgot to say, Conley went on to become president of the Kansas State Historical Society. Okay, so he was a Kansan and he wanted to be popular with them, so he goes on and excoriates Quantrill. So I just found that he was obviously cherry picking, or I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but he was telling part of the truth. In other words, anything that was in his favor, he wrote. Anything that was in favor of Quantrill and his guerrillas, which there was a lot, he just ignored. Also, when it comes to just the Lawrence raid, he took the testimonies from people who called it a massacre and things like that, but he disregarded the other survivors
Real quick, Chris, I think the sound's coming from your microphone touching your jacket. 'Cause when you move your head back and your microphone clears your jacket,
Got it.
see if that gets rid of that noise.
How's that?
Much better.
Okay.
Okay.
So anyway, I think long story short is I just started making notes about all the conflicts, and it took me a while, but I put it all into a book. So in my opinion, I don't know why the Kansans did it the way they did. I really can't. I mean, it's all speculation. Is this a conspiracy or is this just Northern propaganda or whatever it is? But I did find survivors who totally conflicted with some of their facts. But this information is not being permitted to be somewhat exposed to the general public. I've talked to some colleges, some universities. They don't want a platform for it. They really like, I mean, the Lawrence massacre, that's the way they like that. I do not think it was a massacre, and I think I can prove it. Matter of fact, I can prove it. So there's just all these kind of point counterpoint in the book, and I guess that's how I came up with the book.
Excellent. One more thing. The near your neck, is that your microphone or an earpiece? That right there, yeah. That's touch. I think that's touching your material of your jacket, because like when you clear your neck, it doesn't touch and the static goes away. Let's try that for a little bit.
How's that?
That sounds good. Yeah, show that shit. Yeah. Yeah, we got some haps going on there. Okay, so just so you know, folks, tonight we're being broadcasted across all of them are Southern groups. We're going across the Carolina Grey Ghost, All Roads Lead Home Genealogy, Rebel Storm, Southern Independence Association, Confederate Women, the Patriots Lab, Gettysburg Paranormal, not that one, the Unreconstructed, Patriots, Everything Confederate, and last but not least, Well, Bless Your Heart. They're all admins that I'm admin of, and we're also on YouTube live right now. So I know Brad Bowden, he's watching now. Thank you for Brad. Brad is a current ancestry genealogy client of mine. So you'll be seeing a lot of that going on. So Chris has given me an outline to follow. I'm going to do the best I can. So let's get sharing the PowerPoint he has created for us. And let's start with this one here. Let's see if it's readable. Okay. I'm not sure if you can read that, folks. If not, I'll read it for you. So he has the first slide is Kansas Jayhawkers burning Missouri towns on the western border. So Spear, who was Spear?
Okay. I'm getting that echo again.
It's probably because I'm doing the share of the screen, and it's kind of weird, even though there's no audio. Let me just mute my microphone. I don't think it's going to be it. One thing we did find out is that if there's an echo that you're hearing and I'm not, it's probably because of the way EV and my system shares audio. And that's why, well, let me mute my microphone and
we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. John Spear, the echo. John Spear was an abolitionist and a friend of Jim Lane. And right before this makes this really messing me up claim, he said that Jim Lane and the Jayhawkers never did anything to Missouri towns to provoke a raid on Lawrence. So what I see here, Spears ignored the following. whole bunch of those. And I just did 1861 because Jayhawkers burned towns all the way through 1863, 64. But what I'm trying to suggest is this is a big lie. Look at all the things that the Jayhawkers did in 61 before really the Missourians even retaliated. So I show here that Aubrey, which was Quantrill's first raid, wasn't until September 7th. Well, look at all the towns that they had burned. Now you won't find that. I mean, you kind of maybe can, if you're lucky, you'll come across it. But a lot of historians, or most historians, won't talk about what the Jayhawkers did in 61, 62, which, we talk about Quantrill burning towns in Kansas. What he did, I mean, he did Paola, maybe Shawneetown, Lawrence, I mean, maybe three, no more than four, just off the top of my head. Well, look at what they did, and that's just 61. So again, Spear is just lying through his teeth that there was no reason why Quantrill and his guerrillas should have been mad at Lawrence or the Jayhawkers, and they had no business doing what they did. So that's the point of that slide right there. Okay, so on top of the towns, the western border towns being burned, what really provoked it again was that there were a number of women who were arrested by Union General Ewing out of Kansas City. And what he decided, in a way, was that I can't fight these guerrillas. They're just really too good for us. So what we can do is we can declare war on their women, kind of like Hitler did that when he said if the generals didn't follow his instructions, he would kill their families, right? So, but anyway, so he decided he would arrest the sisters, the mothers, the nieces, anyway, all the women folk who were assisting, and truly they were. There's no question about it. The women were, the guerrillas couldn't have existed without the women giving them supplies. So, but anyway, he put them in a prison in Kansas City. It was a 3-story prison. The women were on the second and third floor, and it was a building that was owned by Bingham, the artist, and it wasn't in good shape. And Bingham told Ewing, who put him there, he says, "Yeah, I wouldn't do that. That's not a really good place for them." Well, lo and behold, on August 13th, the building fell to the ground, and there was 6 women who were killed. One was the sister of who would be called Bloody Bill Anderson. 2 of his other sisters were also in the cell, and they were critically hurt, but it was only one sister who actually died. McCorkle was another one who lost a sister and a sister-in-law, and there were a number of others. And this was like, this is it, because the guerrillas claimed that the Kansans did this on purpose, and they did it because they were retaliating, that they couldn't find them, they couldn't stand up to them in battle, and so they were going to get their women and incarcerate them. And like I say, the guerrillas believe that they intentionally murdered them. And there's information that supports that. Even Bingham said that they intentionally killed the women, and he was a Union man. So, but anyway, the debate goes on. It could be that it was dilapidated, and it was going to fall down anyway. But be that as it may, it happened, and the guerrillas were going to take revenge for this. So just a few days later, that would have been what, the 20th, they started, August 20th, they started for Lawrence, actually August 19th, they started for Lawrence, Kansas.
Yeah, so my thought was if the building was old and dilapidated to start with, maybe the number of women being inside that jail, I know primarily somewhere on the second floor, I guess maybe their weight moving around so forth might shift enough of the weak floorboards that made it collapse, correct?
Well, Ewing blamed the women. They said they were trying to tunnel out.
Mm,
Tunnel. Remember that word,
yeah,
tunnel. Well,
tunnel.
they were on the second and third floor, and you can't tunnel out of the second and third floor. The foundation was not damaged in any way whatsoever. So, but there were people, there were witnesses who said that the Kansans were starting to take away some of the joists and things
Mm.
like that. So, whether it was or not, frankly, I personally believe that Ewing wouldn't want to do that. He had enough trouble. I think it was an accident, but what I think is not important, what is important is what the guerrillas thought, and they thought that their women folk had been murdered.
So I changed to the conflict in testimony.
Right. Okay, so what happens here is that Lawrence comes off to suggest that they were unprepared for an attack, that they had no fortifications, that they had no weapons, that they had no soldiers, and it just goes on, and that the victims of the raid were innocent civilians. So, on this particular point of the conflicting testimony, you look at the bottom there, and that is Private Cosmo Coleman. Pardon me. So, he was in the 14th Kansas Cavalry, and he actually survived the raid. And he started out at the southern part in his camp at the southern part of Lawrence and ended up on the northern part. So he ran the whole gauntlet. But he and one other guy, Hovey Loman, are the only two people who had enough guts to tell the truth. So you will not see anybody else make this claim other than Loman, again, but conflicting with we weren't prepared and we didn't have any fortifications. Well, Loman says, and you can read it right there, this is what he said. We have fortifications and we were ready for him. We had Sharps rifles. Of course, they denied they had Sharps rifles. They said they had rusty rifles that had never been put in order, but they didn't. And he said, that if we would have had these guns, we would have got these guys. And he also said, I'm trying to, okay, yeah. So they did have fortifications. And so that was a lie when they said that they didn't.
So tonight, folks, we have some more people joining us. We're here tonight with Chris Edwards, the writer and author of 4 books concerning Quantrill's raid in Lawrence. And we're just going over a little bit about the actually volume number 3, as it turns out. We will be doing an additional broadcast later to cover volume 1, volume 2, and then he has like a tour guide book of Quantrill and his travels, which I'm should be getting in the next couple of days in the mail. So if you have any questions or comments about Quantrill, either for or against, please let us know. Suzanne Arcado, she's watching. She happens to be a friend of ours. And she has a story of her own to tell. One of these days, I'll do a broadcast with her. So we're going to go along. And we're 23 minutes into my normal 1 hour. So if we go over 1 hour, are you good to go for the extra time?
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So go back to, the earthen fortification. Can you click on? Yeah, right there. Can you click on that?
I did.
Oh, it's not coming up.
I'm looking at the 4 entrenchments we're throwing up. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, I'm looking at the next one down.
This one here? Okay.
Okay. Here is an example of we didn't have any fortifications. Okay. Now it does say that this was from 1856. Of course, in 1856, the people of Lawrence were actually in insurrection against the federal government. So, and Lawrence was built as a military colony. But anyway, so they were building fortifications to protect themselves from federal soldiers from enforcing the law. So this is, I'm sure that this did not go away. This is an example of one of the fortifications they would have had in the middle of Massachusetts Street on the day of the raid. And then go to the next one down. Yeah, yeah, there you go. Okay, so this is called Fort Lane, and nobody talks about the existence of Fort Lane, and you can see why. That's a pretty intimidating little fortress there.
Yeah, I think it actually has walls.
Yeah, so that's where the University of Kansas, that's Mount Oriad, and it's the location of where the University of Kansas is now. But in 1863, that fort was there. Now, it was not occupied, it had been before, but you won't find any except two witnesses who will even admit that there was a Fort Lane that they could and had occupied. So again, they're lying when they say they didn't have any entrenchments.
Now, you said there's a university built on that land. Did they build on top of the fort, or they totally got rid of it? There's no remnants to show proof that was ever existed?
They did knock it down. There is a plaque where that fort stood on the campus of the University of Kansas. It's hard to find, but you can find it. I have a picture of it, but it does say that barracks and a fort were raised here and was actually in existence. Okay, so they talk about the fact, most people will read that the only muskets that they had was in the north side of town. They were muskets that the government gave them. They were all rusty. They had never been put in order. And being in the armory, which is on the extreme north side of Massachusetts Street, that it was actually under lock and key. And the guy who had the militia member who had the key was killed on Massachusetts Street. He never quite made it. So they couldn't get to those guns. But I question whether if that was the only weapons that they had. So can you go back to that H.E. Palmer?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, so D.W. Palmer had a store which is where the 14th Kansas Cavalry kept their weapons. Now, again, you won't find that. What they'll describe D.W. Palmer's as a repair shop for muskets. But here's what the Union Major Leroy Beam said, and their camp was right next to D.W. Palmer's store. And so I'm not going to read it, but it just said, hey, if we could have gotten to those guns, things would have been a lot different. But we didn't even have enough time. They took us by surprise. And so, in essence, the soldiers just ran for their lives. They could not get to them. So again, it is a lie when they say that the only weapons that they had was in the armory. Beam claims that if we just had a little bit more time, we could have got to our guns and we probably could have fought them off.
Okay, I apologize for that. I had a news alert go across my screen real quick. Russia is threatening an attack against the United States. Please keep posted on, so I'll keep that thing going there. Yeah, okay. So next conflict, and this, folks, the information he's going over here is taken from his book. At slide number 10, I'm going to stop so I can play a song that was written about him, and then we'll continue. And if we have time tonight, I want to show you this video that the owner of Family Tree Nuts, he's a retired colonel from the Marines. He did a video of Quantrill, and everything that's in his video comes from, it's almost identical. It's almost like he read Chris's Volume 1 book. It's perfectly in line. So if we have time tonight, if not, I'll save that for our next broadcast. So, and what he's saying here is that the other author was saying that these poor folks that they weren't prepared. They didn't have reasonably current weapons that actually fired. They had no form of protection. And oh, woe is us! We died at the hands of these terrible people, and they deserve to be hung. And it's just not the truth. And it's like Chris was saying. The only reason why Quantrill's men went into this town was essentially for revenge for all the attacks the Union guys did against the Southern people. Unfortunately, like in many wars, the government that wins the war gets to write the history, and this particular individual wanted to get acclamation for himself is rewriting history to show fake knowledge. And thankfully for people like Chris, who are doing their best to get the history out there according to fact, not fiction. So here we go.
You want me to take this?
Yep.
Okay. So I got to read it. Okay. So yeah. So again, I go back to the arms problem, and they said they didn't have any arms, and the other, is that it was in the armory in the north side of Massachusetts Street. Well, Ewing says that ain't the case, and you can read that. They had plenty of arms, okay, and he was really disgusted that they were not able to fight off the Quantrill's guerrillas because he felt that they were ready for it. And then, yeah. And he says, there were lots of weapons and brave men to use them, but they didn't.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this is good. Once again, Hovey Loman, the private in the 14th Kansas Cavalry, and Hovey Loman, the other guy I mentioned, they are the only two people who admit that they had a 12-pound cannon. You'll not find that in any other testimony. It was at the head of Massachusetts Street, probably right outside the Eldridge house. And it just said that it was loaded and that it was ready to be fired, but they couldn't get a guy there because Quantrill was on them before they could even man the cannon. But you will not find anybody who will admit, except those two men, that they had a 12-pound cannon. So this thing of them not having weapons and being at the mercy of the guerrilla is just untrue, terribly untrue.
Now it says here that in your slide, the cannon watched by the side of this latter building, the courthouse, but alas, no vigilant gunner was ready fuse watched by the side of the cannon. Did it require something special to spark off the ammunition, the powder inside the cannon to make fire?
All they needed was a team to fire it off, and the team couldn't get to the cannon in time.
So one person couldn't fire it?
Well, I don't know about that. It sounded like they were all primed, and all they needed to do was to set the match.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, the other claim, false claim that the Lawrence people talk about is that they didn't have any soldiers. That it was a town full of innocent civilians, far from the front lines, and they hadn't done anything wrong. And so this guy, again, Richard Cordley, he was a minister. He is quoted as saying, I'm sorry, the claim was that there weren't any, but then Cordley turns around and he, like I said, he's a minister, and he says there was a large number of military men in town. So there again, there's the conflict. Did you or did you not? Both of them are survivors. The two people who made the claims that they didn't have any and they had many comes from the same two different survivors from the same raid. Yeah, and I think right here, just General Ewing, he's just confirming these guys are ready. They should have been ready. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks before the raid, Lawrence was tipped off that a raid was imminent. And so they called in all their people. They called in troops from Fort Riley, and they got all their militias together, and they had people in the fortifications. They were locked and loaded, and then Quantrill didn't come. And so everybody goes, "Oh, this is another false, claim. This isn't really going to happen." But they also bragged that if Quantrill would have come, this is 2 weeks before or a week before, I forget, that we would have wiped him out. We would have wiped him out if he came at the time that we were ready. So they had the capability of wiping him out. Matter of fact, if the people of Lawrence probably had been given 30 minutes notice, it would have been a massacre, but it would have been the guerrillas that would have been massacred.
I mean, when you look at the numbers, they're claiming 550, and Quantrill had what 200, 250. Plus, they had the cannon. I would imagine that cannon would have been manned with the 500 men, so it probably would have been a different story. It all depends on your determination to go into combat and actually, pull the triggers. So let's take a pause here from this and go to the song that I found. Not that. Dun, dun, dun. This one here. I actually listened to this. I actually enjoyed this. And Chris, you might get some feedback on this one here. I apologize. I found that with the music, if I don't do an MP4 to play through EV my streaming services, the echo goes away. But this YouTube music, it's a lot harder to convert it. So if you get some echo, I apologize. But just so you know, the folks at home aren't hearing any kind of echo sounds, okay?
Okay.
You gotta love that bass.
are our rifles, but sweep like the wind. We'll sweep not the sword. We'll draw not the rain. Till panic is banished from valley and plain. Rouse my brave boys of a bad way. Press hard on the forward, dawning of day. Well to your steed, so gallant in chase. May they never give or to win the race.
Hi, yeah, who cares about you? So I'm gonna get rid of her and get back to our show in process. Bum, 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 bum. What do you think of that song? I liked it.
Yeah, I will tell you, I was very, very, very fortunate to be pretty good friends with Kathy Barton, David Perra, and Bob Dyer, who did all that music. Sadly, Bob and Kathy have both passed away.
Mm.
They've been in some shows with me, and they were the only ones who really did the music and did it extremely well. So they are missed, definitely.
I love that one guy's really deep voice.
Yeah, that's Bob Dyer.
I love that voice. Okay, so we're back to the city folks. Oh, okay, Brad Bowen, thanks for being here. Suzanne Arcado, Zach Rayla, and all those who are not making the comments, thank you for being here. Again, we're with Chris Edwards, author of 4 books concerning Quantrill's raid on Lawrence. They're available now on Amazon. I highly recommend that you get your copies, like I have myself. We are next here with slide number 11.
Yeah, here again is the accusation that there were no soldiers in town and that they were caught unawares and they had no way to defend themselves. But again, here's Thomas Ewing, who was in charge of defending the town, and he says, hey, they had 550 soldiers drilled and ready to go. Lawrence had 200 to 300 militia. Okay, that's
800 men plus.
Yeah. So Quantrill had like 300. And one thing I want to add here, out of the 300, I have a testimony from one of the survivors again, and he at least he was honest. He said, of that 300, it is suggested that all 3 of them were murderers. And he goes, no, that's not right. As a matter of fact, very few did the killing. And he said 50, and then he even went down to 25, and then Conley even went down to 12. So, and they called it like the death squad. And these were the guys from Jackson County. These are the guys with Bloody Bill Anderson, whose 3 daughters, 2 which were terribly hurt and 1 was killed. They went over to the west side of town where all the officers and things were, and they were the killing squad. And so, again, to suggest that all 300 men were killers and murderers, that's not true at all. It was probably less than 50, could have been as few as 12. Most of them told the women of Lawrence that they came over to burn and take some horses, but they weren't coming to kill. So that's just the facts.
Okay. There we go.
Okay, yeah. All right. So this is a great one. I love it. So at the end of most books that you'll get from Conley and Schultz and all the rest of them, Castile, at the back of the book, they'll have a list of the soldiers in the 14th Kansas Cavalry that were killed. Okay, so they admit these guys were killed, but then they'll have a big list of what they call innocent civilians, unarmed innocent civilians. So it took me a lot of hours and a few years, but I cross referenced every one of those suckers with military records, and I found over 60 of those who, why don't you go to the next
Okay.
slide there? Okay, these are the people who were listed as innocent civilians.
Good.
I found over 60 who had military records, either with the Union Army or with the local militia. So I don't want to get into the red leg part, but anyway, I've got their name and who they were affiliated with. And I think there's one more. Can you go back down
Yep.
one more? Okay. And this is just a partial list. I decided I didn't want to go 3 slides into it, but that just gives you an idea. Again, this is a big lie. It's a big lie. And you will find more eyewitnesses, Lawrence people, who said they weren't killing indiscriminately. They had lists. They had lists. They had lists. And even Cosmo Coleman of the 14th Kansas said, you know what? I was out in the street, and after the first rush, I was still out in the street, and they could have killed a lot of people. There were a lot of people out in the street, but they just went on by, and they didn't bother us again. So if it was indiscriminate killing, why would they go by them? There were a lot of people who they saved, and that's another part of it. But the people in the Eldridge house who were captured and held prisoner, there were 60 men in there. Why weren't they all killed? Because a lot of them were Union officers, okay, who were spending the night there. And Quantrill made a point of escorting them to the Whitney House, which was another hotel, and he put his own personal guard around the Whitney House so they would be spared, okay? So there's 60 guys whose lives he saved right there. And there were guys in his, well, not in Quantrill's command, but there were guerrillas who wanted to kill every one of those guys. And Quantrill had to stand in front of them and say, if you shoot one of these guys, I'm going to shoot you. Okay, so he had a lot of guts, and he made sure that his prisoners, his 60, were safe in the Whitney House, and they survived. And he saved a lot of other people's homes from being burned. It's just that you don't hear about that in the northern narrative of the raid.
Well, it sounds to me, and I read the book, and I'm hearing you now. It almost sounds to me like, even though Quantrill was the leader of these these guerrillas, he didn't have complete control of all of them. If he had to place his own personal guard around his home to protect these innocents from the other guerrillas within his group, were there 2 different factions fighting together with Quantrill?
Right, there were. Okay, so Quantrill had about 100 people that he directly commanded, but you have to realize that in 1863 they split off geographically. So in 62 they pretty much rode all together. All of the commands rode together. In 63, when he came back, he said, Cole Younger, I want you to take this geographic area. Todd took this particular area. Anderson took another area. So bringing all these guys together, really, the guerrillas' allegiance was to their captain. So, yeah, but Quantrill had his own personal escort, his men, which about 100, and that's why, when he spared the 60 men and took them to the Whitney House for safety, he put his guards around them. He didn't want Anderson's guards around him because he knew that Anderson was out for blood. And so, maybe George Todd, but anyway, there were other guerrillas that really wanted to kill everybody, but Quantrill permitted that from happening. Oh, okay. So this is where we get into a little. This goes back to the course that I had to take in graduate school, and I tell people when I do this, like, how did we come to this? So I just want you to know this. Getting the truth out of history has been a struggle that we've been working on, not just recently, but for a long time. Matter of fact, starts back in the 1860s, okay? But this David Bigler, who is a professor in history, I mean, you can read it for yourself, but he says, we are not free. We are not free of the historical prejudices of New Englanders. Who wrote the history? New Englanders, right? Okay, they won the war. So, and then he goes on to say it's a natural thing, perhaps, for people who want to be called someday to full professorship at Harvard. So he's saying there's bias, and a lot of the stuff that they have written is a lie. And that's what I'm contending. Now, you can't, even though I was required to take this course way back in 2004 or 5 in graduate school, the professors today don't want to hear it because that's exactly, they're defending their narrative, and they're not going to give anybody a platform to disagree with them. They're not going to. They're going to hold it. And if you try and I've tried, they're going to call you every name in the book, and they are not going to give you a platform.
Okay, so that ends this PowerPoint. I got a couple others. Let's see. I created these myself. So I did a little bit of, trying to find some video. Now, Brad mentioned that when I played the song, that he was getting some echo. So I'm not going to play the video of from Nuts and Trees because that's probably going to do the same thing. But I can convert that to a special video that EV Mux will accept. So I'll save that for our next broadcast, especially since we're down to 8 minutes. So I won't do that to the people, have them sit through like 10 minutes of an echo. But I can change that. But unfortunately, that song I couldn't. But these are just some images I took off of YouTube to show that, there was just like any. The only time you see movies being made are usually because of a hero type thing. And these images, you see CinemaScope, goes back a long time. And if you ever get a chance, folks, grab this movie off YouTube and watch it. It's about Quantrill's raid. And you'll find it very interesting. I also found a couple images of the reunion of the survivors of Quantrill's men. Obviously, here's the painting of Quantrill himself with his men who still survive. And there's the original, non-colorized version. Look at these guys.
And here's Jesse James Jr. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, right there. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. You got it right. My glasses are off.
Yeah. Here, I like this one here.
Yeah. Here's their John Nolan, I believe their black member.
Up here, here he is.
Yeah.
Oops. Right there he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So history is being rewritten by the North, and you have to dig deep, like Chris did, to find the evidence. These slides here, I'm not sure if these came. I think these came from your book, Chris. That I found them online. But you have your book out, and I'm calling the fourth book about the tour of Quantrill's travels. So here you have like a step by step and a little narrative of where through the raid through Lawrence, and I find that some of these buildings are still standing today.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this one here just There's a parking garage there now, but there is a marker to indicate what was there and so forth. And even here, the marker says, "We had no arms of any kind except an old worthless musket with bayonet, which we used for standing guard." The survivor's name is Cosmo T. Coleman. The girl escaped. Several witnesses maintained that the women of Lawrence were the true heroes that day. For instance, Elizabeth hid her husband in a rolled carpet and dragged him from their burning home at what is now Vermont Street. Around 9 a.m., the raiders, scouts of Mount Oriad, alerted them of approaching Union troops. Quantrill has been assembled at South Park. After 4 hours of looting, arson, and murder, the guerrillas rode south out of Lawrence.
Do they mention that Fisher was a chaplain in the 5th Kansas Cavalry? I can't read it. It's too small.
Let's see. So yeah, it says Reverend Hugh Fisher.
No.
That doesn't give a ranking of him. No.
Okay, so he was, and that's why he was on the list to be killed.
Yeah, explain to the
So
people.
he went. Let me jump in here real quick. He went to Osceola with Jim Lane, burned it to the ground, took the sacraments out of Missouri churches, and took them back to Lawrence. That's why they hated him.
So explain to people. I don't think we touched base on. We know that Quantrill was trying his best to keep the dead to a minimum, and he mentioned that there was someone he protected. In your book, you indicate that they had a list of names that they were specifically looking for. You want to explain to people what that list was about?
Yeah, the list had been made prior to the raid, and there was a Mrs. Likens who ended up being Mrs. Bingham later on when her husband, she was a pro-Southerner from Kansas City, and her son actually lived in Lawrence, and he was a pro-Southerner. So I'm sorry, I'm getting no. Give me that question one more time. Likens, go ahead.
About the list of men that
yeah. Okay, so Likens knew Lawrence like the back of her hand. And so she got with Quantrill before the raid and started showing the where the houses were of the people that were on his list.
And and because she was helping out, she was protected.
She was in Lawrence with her son on the day of the raid, and their house was not burned, and they were not molested. So go figure.
Yeah. So, yeah, was she a spy for Quantrill or just a very lucky person? Who knows?
No, she was a spy, but he had 3 or 4 other spies in there. As a matter of fact, they had spies in there the night before the raid. As a matter of fact, there was a meeting of the railroad that was supposed to go through Lawrence the night before, and Fisher, the chaplain Fisher, was at. Jim Lane was at that meeting, and so the next morning, people were saying, "Oh, Jim Lane is not here," and this other guy said, "Oh no, he's here. He was at the meeting last night. I've been outside his house all night long, and he has not left." So he had spies.
So, folks, we're at the end of our 1 hour. Here is volume 1 of his book, William Clark Quantrill, What History Doesn't Want You to Know. Volume 1, beginnings to 1862. And here is, I get it over to the monitor. There we go. Volume 2, What History Doesn't Want You to Know, 1863 to 1865. And then this one here, volume number 3. Get this down, out of the way. Bum, bum, bum. There we go. Quantrill's raid on Lawrence, Kansas, revisiting the evidence. And there's a 4th one. I don't have the image of that one, but that one is about like a tour guide. So if you want to go to Kansas, you can actually go step by step to where follow in his footsteps. Chris, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for all the information you provided tonight. Like I mentioned before, a lot of folks watch this after the fact, and I'll keep you abreast as to how the numbers climb up. Um, we were on YouTube, plus all my other groups and my own personal groups. So I'll send you the link to the show. So if you have your own groups or pages you want to send to, you can share to them as well. Okay.
And I would like to add that those two, Volume 1 and Volume 2, well, have just come out on Amazon.
Yes.
But you can find the tour book. You can find What Really Happened, the Lawrence Raid, Volumes 1 and 2. They're all on Amazon right now. So
Yeah.
if you're interested, check it out. I'd really appreciate it.
Yes, they are definitely on. Yeah, I was surprised when I saw them on Amazon. I also saw some other books with your name on it. So you do more than just those books, right? Or is there another?
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, there's four. Actually, there's technically five. There's one that's not on Amazon right now. But anyway, yeah, there's yeah, those four anyway for sure on Amazon. So I think they're all pretty good.
Yeah.
And the most important thing for me is get the message out, find out what the truth is. Okay, just find out what the truth is, or at least consider an alternate interpretation of the raid and what you've been fed by Northern propaganda.
And it's not just this one particular person, this one particular attack. Uh, the SIA, the Southern Independence Association, their whole thing is about trying to correct the history of the past from what is being written now. Steve Taylor just posted. He says, "Well done, Chris." I guess that's someone you know.
Steve Taylor,
Yeah.
yeah, he and I are good buddies. He knows literally where all the bodies are buried in the state of Missouri, and he he is so knowledgeable. We got to keep him alive until he's got all this stuff documented, and we can pass it on to the next generation. But he's exceptional.
And Brad Bowden just said, very interesting. He would definitely be looking to buy your books.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Yep. Then stay tuned. I'm going to end the live broadcast, but I want to mention one last thing for you off air. Some food for thought for you, okay?
Yeah.
So folks, thanks for being here tonight. Share this out. It's an important message. Southern history is being rewritten, as even after all these years after the battle between the North and the South, the Battle of Independence, or as the Yankees call it, the Civil War. Don't take your first thing that you see, read, or watch as gospel. You got to do your due diligence, like this man here has done, and get the truth. And with that, folks, I'm going to end the live broadcast. And stay tuned for the follow-up, probably sometime next week, maybe, for we're going over Volume 1. Take care, folks.